In the previous video we went to Horsetown to pick up a car and then we raced off to Silkeborg to see if the reading horse there was still open. And it was, and we got some games, and now we're heading north. Destination, home. But we're gonna make a pit stop on the way. I figured that I wanted to hit up a few more stores, but as I stopped for lunch and did some research, I found out that most stores in the area up north that could sell video games were either shut down or still closed due to the plague. And wanting to play it safe, I continued to flex hound to the reading horse I knew was open and that I knew would not disappoint. I went in and I started looking. By now I've figured out the owner. He prices things according to his interests, meaning that anything he's interested in will be priced a certain rate to directly correspond with its online value, because he knows about those games and he knows what they are worth. I've more or less figured out his area of interest and the period of time where his interest in gaming clearly fades away. So while his games are priced fairly high compared to other second hands, once you figure out that a Hotel Dusk Complete in box is €60, but a King's Field 4 is 15, you can make some pretty good bargains. And I did make out like a bandit and bought 6 games for €15 each, for a total of €80ish. But let's have a look.
It just keeps getting dirtier. Dirtier.
I'm a big fan of the World of Darkness universe, and I got my start with Hunter the Reckoning, a 4-player hack-and-slash brawler that sees the titular hunters venture into the town of Ashcroft that's recently been besieged by demons, and find the source of the evil, fight their way towards it, and kill it. I used to play that one a ton with my friends, and while we never completed it or even came close, it still remains one of my favorite games on the OG Xbox. I bought the sequel a few years ago, Redeemer, and now I have this one, Wayward. Hunter the Reckoning started as a cross-platform GameCube/Xbox game and then had a direct sequel released exclusively on the PS2, and then a direct sequel to that released exclusively on the Xbox that same year. So how is it on PS2? Well, it's obviously fuzzier, looks scuffed, and it runs even worse. It only supports 2 players due to system limitations, I'm assuming, and the levels are a lot smaller for a similar reason, I imagine. But other than that, it improves in a lot of areas. The first game was a linear A to B affair. You started in the first level and then you completed that and then you went to the next one, but here you arrive at a mission hub pretty early on and you use that hub to select missions you want to go on. I'm pretty sure it lets you revisit earlier areas as well, which is something that the first game didn't really allow to my knowledge. It makes it easier to redo optional objectives, complete challenges and unlock unlockables, and in general it just makes for a more user-friendly bite-sized experience that doesn't force you and 3 friends to sit down for 4 hours and maybe still end up with a bad run, forcing you to do it all over again. This is definitely one I will be coming back to.
The idol must be returned. Under a dark and cloudy sky, the Swordmaster led his men to the ancient land.
You know, when I looked at this game, my first thought was, I bet this is worth something. The first 3 King's Field games were made for the PS1 and they are incredibly slow and awkward experiences that play exactly like you would imagine Dark Souls playing on a PS1. But I figured that since the 4th one here was on the PS2 that it had to be more mutton butter. Nope. Even getting anywhere in the game in the beginning is maddening because the game doesn't feature dual analog controls but the very same layout as the first 3. The left stick moves you back and forth and turns you left and right, and the left shoulder button strafes right and left, and the right shoulder button looks up and down. And the menu button is of course circle, because why not, and select does nothing, and start just pauses, which is somehow different from entering the menu. Nothing is explained in the game and you're dumped into its world, and moving in any direction in the game's first 10 minutes will surely kill you because you have no idea what anything is. But after you've fallen into your first mud pit and you've been murdered by your first flesh-eating plant, you start to get a grip on it, and then it starts to get interesting. You begin finding equipment and finding secret passages that take you up to parts of the map that you've been previously able to see from a distance. And you find treasure and something that starts to resemble some answers. And I kind of get why people like the Souls games. There is something very interesting about the world that wants nothing to do with you, and a world that you must conquer and force the answers out of. Splitgate 2 is an amazing game, and it's one of those rare shooters that knows how to have fun. And it isn't afraid to get gimmicky, and it's a game that is absolutely booming with stuff to do, and there is no way that it could exist today without getting nickeled and dimed and have all its awesome unlocks partitioned off as microtransactions. The story of the game is that you are some kind of time agent and you are trying to stop evil time aliens from messing up time, and you go to different periods in time to stop their evil time ruining plans. The campaign is fully playable in co-op, and I think that's really how it should be played, and each mission is a love letter to science fiction and action films of the 80s and 90s. You have everything from infiltrating a Soviet base that seems a little familiar if you've watched a certain James Bond film, to a gangster level, to a pulpy alien level, to the prerequisite Wild West level, to the wild settings of the stealth action of the futuristic 2019 Neo Tokyo and beyond. Each mission does something a little different. You might fight zombies, stealth your way through, you name it, and it really keeps the game fresh at all times. And the thing that I think really makes Timesplitter stand out is the challenge mode, that expands on a lot of the gameplay ideas in the main campaign and also includes like a ton of other stuff. There are zombie survival challenges, one where you just smash windows, stealth challenges, a challenge that's just an homage to the first game, and a staggering amount of challenges where you just murder monkeys in different and creative ways. And that mode, along with the other modes, including the story mode, unlocks things like characters that you can use in the 4-player multiplayer mode. And they aren't just skins, the monkey is really tiny and hard to hit, and the gingerbread man is almost impossible to hit when his side is turned, because he's flat on that side, and so on and so on and so on. It's a game that I've probably spent thousands of hours playing, and I could spend another 1,000 playing it, because there are still things that I want to unlock and stuff I want to master that I just couldn't figure out as a dumb little child. Maybe even get around to finishing the story mode one of these days. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time. And while my uncle is a bit of a fuck up, I will always think back fondly on the time that he took me and my brother to see the first Spider-Man movie here in the local theater, right here on the island. It's a memory that I've always thought back on and thought to myself, well, at least he means well. I wanted the game that accompanied the movie so bad, but it was quite the journey to get it. I initially bought the PC version, as I guess we didn't have an Xbox or maybe a PS2 at the time. But my computer couldn't run it, and then I tried to get it to run at my other uncle's house, and his computer wouldn't progress past the tutorial, so I just kind of gave up at that point. But then we got an Xbox and I bought the game, and it was every bit as good as I had hoped it would be. Many will say that the second game is amazing, but I've always had a really soft spot for the first one. It's the first game that really gets web slinging right, and it not only gets that right, it also gets web as a weapon right. You can quickly zip enemies with it and pull them towards you or their guns out of their hands, and during stealth sections, which are a thing you can do, you can tap a button and quickly make an escape before an enemy spots you. And if they do spot you, the combat system isn't completely worthless either, as it is composed of dozens of combo attacks that can be chained together to take down multiple enemies in one fell swoop. And there is a bit of early Arkham Asylum magic to it, and just, on a way smaller budget. But what really makes it a special game to me is that it takes the movie story and then turns it into a TV show season-long arc, where Green Goblin is someone that will like fight every once in a while, and there's like a clear build up to doing a final confrontation with him. But in between we gotta deal with Spidey's regular rogues gallery, and a lot of the classics show up, such as Vulture, Rhino, Kraven, you name it. And the super duper cool thing is that there are a lot of unlockable characters, and they aren't just skins. Well, some of them are, but a lot of them aren't. The best unlockable is unlocking Green Goblin as a playable character, which will also unlock a separate alternate history story mode, where you play as Harry Osborn searching for his father's killer, which yes, does absolutely tease the events of the third movie, which by this point hadn't happened and wouldn't happen yet for another 5 years. And it's not just a palette swap either. You don't swing around as a Green Goblin cosplaying Spider-Man, no. The mode comes with its own moves and attacks, and you spend a lot of time flying around on the glider, and it really changes up a lot of the game. And while the entire experience as a whole hasn't aged particularly well, I still think it's worth inputting a cheat and giving this a go, because it's just so really neat. I'm not a big shmup fan, which I think is what you would classify these kinds of games as, but I love Panzer Dragoon and everything about it. There is a tragic beauty in its disgusting biopunk world, where the earth is dying and dragons are these fabled creatures that hold the same opinion in public conscience as nuclear weapons do in ours. It's a world ravaged and destroyed by a 1,000-year war, and yet all of the games, and especially Orta, are incredibly beautiful. Every time I find myself playing it, I get a little frustrated and I inevitably die and I have to restart. And I almost want to quit, but I also want to see what comes next, so I keep going because I have to see where it goes, even though I know, and I just have to re-experience these stunning and haunting visuals, and it's not the same when you just watch the cutscenes. You have to earn them. It used to be a fairly expensive game, but it's not really anymore, and I fully recommend it. I even recommend buying an Xbox just so you can play it. The Thing is a game I remember playing once at a store and thinking that it was quite alright for a licensed game, but that was that. Fine. But a couple of years ago I learned that it wasn't just a regular action game, it was a quote-unquote real horror game that featured spooks and scares, as well as survival mechanics such as managing your body temperature and making sure your teammates aren't the Thing, and so on and so on, and that is what it is. You're the commander of a team of military guys that get dropped off at the base that was the scene of the movie to find out what happened during the movie. Things quickly get spooky as it becomes obvious that someone, or rather something, has wreaked havoc on the base and killed all the people here, and that it's still very much around. You lead your team through the ruins of the base, and you restore power to systems to enter buildings, and you use your medic to heal your teammates, and you build trust with your teammates to make sure they won't attempt to murder you because they think you are the Thing. And you also sometimes build distrust when you learned in the previous save that someone is the Thing, so you take their gun right before the cutscene triggers that reveals them to be the Thing. The voice acting is so and so, and the story as well, it's not really there. But there is an incredible depth to the game. It's clear from the finished product that the developer actually wanted to make this game, and that any shortcomings aren't there due to a lack of passion, but probably just time and money. I love how it basically takes the movie and gamifies everything. Building trust is a gamified mechanic that you have to manage. There's a coldness meter that you have to manage, and you have to make sure you're not out too long in the cold, or else you'll get hypothermia. The enemies have to be grinded down with bullets and then set on fire to be killed, just like in the movie. And there are also flares that you can use as a temporary shield to protect yourself against the Thing, so it won't come near enough you to do any damage. It's a game that was never going to win any awards or anything like that, but it's an extremely competent survival game that brings enough novelty to the table to be a recommendation, and I absolutely suggest you go seek it out because it's great. So, was it all worth it? I mean, I got some amazing games that I've been playing quite a bit, and the thing will definitely become a go-to classic of mine that I will pester people to play because it's just that good. But monetarily, it's also looking quite alright. As I mentioned earlier, I got 6 games for 80 euros, and their values are Hunter the Reckoning, 12 euro, King's Field 4, 173 euro, Time Splitters 2, 10 euro, Spider-Man the movie game, 15 euro, Panzer Dragoon Auto, 40 euro, The Thing, 12 euro, which comes out to a total of 261 euro or 181 euro in profit, with some of that being more saved costs than it is profit due to shipping. All in all, a very good haul. The Thing is absolutely my favorite thing I got, but I also feel like I owe it to King's Field and the FromSoft fans that I know to dig a little deeper into it and see if it gets better at some point. It has to be, right? I know that there is a 5, so it's not like this one killed the series. Anyways, as I walked out of the store, it was time to go back to the island. So I headed to the harbor, I got on the ferry and I stared out the window for 90 minutes, got off, and then I got home, snuggled up with the pets on the couch, and then I immediately fell asleep after a very long day. The next day I felt a bit inspired by my purchases, so I went to the beach and said hello to a young seal boy, and then I ripped a few waves, and then I went home and played video games. Like the fucking nerd I am. Life is good. Until I see you next time. Bye bye.